Miami Hurricanes showed their youth last year, but they played great at 9-4. They lost the Champ Sports Bowl to Wisconsin. Randy Shannon enters his 4th year, but offensive coordinator Mark Whipple improved the offense from 326 yards per game to 400. Ja'Cory Harris, their quarterback, Greg Cooper, got injured, so he might not be around, but they still got Damian Berry, the senior. Look for him to break out, and they have a whole bunch of receivers, Leonard Hankerson and Travis Benjamin, but the taller targets, Aldarius Johnson, LeVron Burton need to step up. Richard Gordon redshirted last year. He's a senior at tight end, and Orlando Franklin and Joe Figueroa are the only 2 returning starters. They give up 35 sacks, so can their offensive line improve from last year?
Yeah, to me, that's a minor concern. I think they really have to improve a little bit. Part of it was Ja'Cory Harris holding the ball too long and just not throwing the football away. So, which leads me to my second point. He has to protect the football, and he can't have those inconsistencies that he had as a sophomore. And take a look out for us. Storm Johnson, running back, true freshman, 6 feet 212. He might come in and steal some ticks away in that backfield position. And that wide receiver group is a talented, deep group, the deepest core that Miami has had in a long time.
Well, not only did the offensive coordinator make moves, but John Lovett, the defensive coordinator, 30 yard per game improvement in rush defense from 152 in 08. They were only giving him 122 last year, 24 sacks. And they have Alan Bailey, defensive end, first-team All-Conference, freshman All-American, defensive tackle Marcus Forston, Colin McCarthy, a great tackler, a linebacker. Sean Spence was hobbled by injuries in his sophomore year, but he was great in his freshman year. He's back, and they have a good secondary. Brandon Harris, third-team All-American, and Vaughn Telemack at strong safety. And at free safety will be a couple of young guys battling for that spot, and Jamal Reed and Ray Armstrong.
Yeah, the secondary really is talented, but they need to make more big plays. They have to get their hands on a lot of interceptions. You know, Brandon Harris dropped a lot of those interceptions, so they have to make sure they make more game-changing plays in the secondary. Linebacker depth, I'm worried about. It is worrisome because they don't have any depth behind those linebackers that are starters. So that could prove to be a problem area for the season. And how strong is that interior defensive line of Miami? That's one question mark they have going into the season. If they can solve that early on within these games, they'll be fine throughout the year.
North Carolina ended 8-5 last year after a loss in the Meineke Car Care Bowl in Charlotte to Pitt. Now Butch Davis is back for his 4th year. T.J. Yates is really feeling the heat from redshirt freshman Bryn Renner. So whoever's going to win that job is going to have the keys to a Mercedes because Sean Drone is back and the big back Ryan Houston. Look out for true freshman Giovanni Bernard. This guy could have a breakout year like Deion Lewis did. They got wide receivers Greg Little, their lead receiver back, Jerani Boyd, sophomore. He's looking to break out. And they have a good tight end back after he tore his ACL last year, Zach Pianalto. Alan Peck, right tackle. Look for left tackle James Hurst, true freshman. He's the only new guy. He's the only new guy on that offensive line. So they got to experience O-line also.
Well, Yates has to cut down on the turnovers and eliminate the mistakes. That's the biggest question mark on offense is, can Yates protect the football and make plays down the field when they need them? There's a lot of unfulfilled potential at wide receiver, and we know what potential is. Potential will get you beat and get you fired. So those receivers have to step up and be dynamic. And Drawn is an outstanding running back, a beast of a running back, so he's back healthy. Expect to see that running game take off again this year.
And on the defensive side of the ball, they were second in the ACC, only giving up 17 points per game. And I'm going to name at least 6 all-conference players, starting with the defensive line, tackle Marvin Austin and end Robert Quinn. The 2 linebackers are great, Quan Sertivan and Bruce Carter. And Carter is a great special teams player also. And in the secondary, they got Kendrick Burney at cornerback and free safety Deontay Williams. So this defense really has a lot of potential.
And you also want to keep an eye on the 4th and 5th cornerback, Fontroy, as well as Jackson. They're going to be tested. Teams going to try to spread out the Tar Heels and attack those cornerbacks in the secondary. You mentioned the 2 linebackers. There are 2 NFL linebackers on that squad, Carter and Sturdivant. And just so expect more dominance from the Tar Heels defensively, and that's going to keep them in a lot of games. It always, jumps back to the offense if Yates can make the plays when they need them to.
The Virginia Cavaliers ended the season on a disappointing note, ending 3-9. Out is Al Groh. In is Mike London, the former Richmond head coach, and he was at Virginia as a defensive coordinator. Mark Verica, the quarterback, slated to start. They have a big running back in Keith Payne, but the key is that offensive line. They give up 41 sacks, and They allowed the running backs to rush for less than 3 yards per carry. So Landon Bradley, left tackle, and true freshman Morgan Moses really need to anchor the O-line.
Expect that O-line to improve this year because you know that the offensive line for Virginia has always been solid. So last year was an aberration. Guard B.J. Cabell is going to be a solid player. He is a solid player, so expect him to get that rest of their offensive line to be a much improved unit. Expect a running back by committee this year. There's a lot of holes and question marks on offense from quarterback to wide receivers who are non-existent under Al Groh. So, a lot of questions for Virginia this year on offense.
22 sacks last year, their lowest since 2005. They gave up over 26 points per game. This is why they're transitioning from a 3-4 defense to a standard 4-3. Defensive tackle Matt Conrad is back. Linebacker Steve Greer is their leading tackle who returns. He's only a sophomore, and he was a second-team freshman All-American last year. And they also have standout cornerback Rasai Dowling.
You look at that cornerback. That's the best cornerback, Dowling and McLeod. That is the defensive strength, their secondary. You look at Jenkins and you also look at Conrad. They have to get tougher against the run because teams were able to gash Virginia in that run defense last season. So they have to get tougher against the run. And moving to the 4-3 will help that out a lot.
And the Hokies of Virginia Tech got another double-digit win season for Frank Beamer, who's ending his 24th year at the helm. Tyrod Taylor is back for his senior year, and Ryan Williams. What a redshirt freshman season. He was a first-team freshman All-American. Now Darren Evans comes back. Look for Josh Oglesby to add to that depth. Jarrett Boykin, 40 receptions last year at wide receiver. Darrell Roberts will have a breakout year. Bo Warren and Blake DeChristopher helped pave the way for 4.7 yards per carry, their highest since 2003.
Well, they got the best running back duo in the country in Evans and Williams, best 1-2 punch, in particular in the conference as well. But also look at the fact that you have to admire Tyrod Taylor continued progression as a pocket passer. That's going to help out that pass game tremendously. And I have some questions about the offensive line. They have to get that fixed this season.
And on defense, Bud Foster, the ACs, led an ACC low 15.5 points per game. He's in his 16th year. Only 4 starters returning, though. Linebacker Barquell Rivers, he was injured in March. He had surgery, but he's their most experienced. They got John Graves as a defensive tackle. And in their secondary, they played really well last year. Rashard Carmichael, their cornerback, and Rover Devon Morgan. They held their quarterback's opponent's completion rating under 48%.
And they're looking to regain that swagger and that run defense is Virginia Tech. That's going to have to be key because Virginia Tech's defense used to get after the quarterback and used to be aggressive against the run. They have to get back to that this season. Also, the defense lacks depth. And you look at that total 2-deep roster defensively, 12 freshmen and sophomores on that roster. So that's a lot of youth outside of the starters. So they have a lot of young players on defense. That's going to have to be important that they have to hope those guys get up to speed. And look at in the secondary, Jairo Hosley had an outstanding spring, and he could contend for all conference.